Is this your first time? The man, who smelled of earth and chemicals, lifted his chin and seemed to be looking at him through his large, hairy nostrils. They reminded Theo of a gun barrel, but one with grey sprigs sprouting from it. The man was old and looked more like a farmer than a master, the kind of person he'd seen up in Scotland when his father had taken him grouse shooting on the glorious 12th. He shuddered at the memory of that weekend, having found nothing glorious about it. He hadn't liked it, not at all, and was still ashamed of how he had cried at the sight of the bird's beautiful mottled plumage lying limply in the gun dog's mouth. His father had been less than impressed, banning him from the shoot the next day. Instead, he'd had to sit in the car for 8 hours with just a tartan-patterned flask of tea and a single stale bun. There'd been no facilities, so he had to tinkle on the grass verge. It was a chilly day, and his shaky aim had meant he'd sprinkled his own shoes. Thankfully, they'd dried out by the time his father returned. "Yes, sir," he nodded, sniffing to halt the coming tears. "Well, for a start, you can stop calling me sir. I'm not a teacher. I'm part groundsman and part gamekeeper. My name is Mr. Porter. Got it?" "Yes, sir. Mr. Porter, sir." Mr. Porter placed his knuckles on the waist of his worn tweed jacket and looked Theo up and down. "You're a skinny thing. Reckon you're up to picking litter?" Theo nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. I think so, sir. I've never done it before." "Don't you worry about that. It's as simple as falling off a log. You ever fallen off a log, Mr. Montgomery?" "No, sir." "It's Mr. Porter." "Yes, sorry." Theo blinked. "Mr. Porter, sir." Mr. Porter shook his head in a way that was familiar to Theo, a gesture that managed to convey both disappointment and irritation. Again, an image of his father flashed into his head. Theo offered up a silent plea that Peregrine James Montgomery III, Perry to his friends, would not get to hear about this latest misdemeanor. Theo had been a Vasey college boy for a little over 3 weeks. His father had been not only head of Theobald's house, but also captain of the cricket and rugby teams, earning his colours in the first team. His were big shoes to fill. "Don't you let me down, boy." His father's words rang in his ears like rolling thunder. Mr. Porter broke his chain of thought, emerging from the house with a large black bin bag and a pair of gardening gloves. "Here, put these on." He tossed the gloves in Theo's direction. They landed on the ground. Theo cursed his inability to catch and scrambled for them on the path before shoving them on. They were miles too big, sitting comically askew on his tiny hands. "Follow me." Mr. Porter marched ahead, striding with purpose. Theo noticed that his feet seemed disproportionately large for his small build, though that might have been because of his sturdy green gumboots. He wore a flat cap in a different tweed to his jacket, and a burgundy muffler fastened around his neck. "Keep up!" he called over his shoulder, and Theo broke into a trot, his knees knocking beneath his long grey shorts. They continued in silence for 10 minutes, long enough for Theo's body to have warmed up and for his cheeks to have taken on a flush. It was only 4 in the afternoon, but dusk was already nudging the sunshine out of the way. Theo liked this time of year, when the air smelt of bonfires, and at home an extra eiderdown was placed on the foot of his bed against the chill of his room. "Here we are, then," Mr. Porter barked as they neared the edge of the field and the narrow lane that led to the older girls' boarding houses. "The wind blows a stiff northwesterly." He used his chunky fist to draw the shape of the wind in the air. "And the litter gets picked up like a mini tornado and carried along until it meets this hedgerow, and this is where it gets stuck." They both stared at the hedge. Mr. Porter took a breath. "I suppose you're wondering why it matters that an old rogue crisp packet or strip of newspaper gets lodged in the hawthorn?" Theo hadn't been wondering any such thing. His primary concern was, in fact, whether or not his fingers would get snagged.